We also went through a process of looking at all the maintenance records of the aircraft. We looked at the flight logs of the aircraft, we looked at the flight logs of the crew, we checked on the crew's qualification, we checked on documentation, just to be sure that everything was proper. The flight data and cockpit voice recorder were then transported to the AVIC Flight Decoding Center in Xi'an, China, from the 12th September to 22nd September 2025. Now, AVIC is the Aviation Industry Corporation of China. The aircraft is a Chinese aircraft. They were the manufacturers. They had the software and the hardware capable of decoding and giving us the data from the flight data recorder. So we had to go to them. We also decided, as is normal with investigations, to look at the human factors and operational information. We looked at the medical and psychological records of the flight crew. Interviews were conducted with pilots, engineers, superiors, to assess the crew's proficiency, training history, and operational culture. We also actually interviewed their families and so on. We left no stone unturned. The weather in the southern Ghana was poor on the day, which delayed departure for about an hour. In Accra, conditions were misty, with visibility of about 5 to 7 kilometers and very low clouds starting at only 700 to 1100 feet above the ground. While the situation improved slightly later in the morning, the early hours were dominated by haze and overcast skies. The helicopter, however, did not have some avionic safety enhancements. As I said before, the aircraft was serviceable and airworthy. The additional safety equipment that the helicopter did not have were things like the helicopter terrain awareness system or the enhanced ground proximity warning system, as you may choose, advanced navigation with terrain mapping, an automatic flight control system. And I would say that these safety equipment would have enhanced situational awareness. For instance, it didn't have an autopilot. That's advanced and automatic flight control system, so that the crew had to manually fly the plane. So it sort of increases workload. Typically, you want to have a plane that has an autopilot. All the civil planes use autopilots, and the workload on the pilots is very low. It gives you the chance to do things and to think easily, and so on and so forth. Despite all this, the aircraft was in a good condition to fly, and we struggled using sticks and everything to try to get up there. So looking at everything, we would say very confidently that the emergency response was very timely. The investigation determined that the accident was caused by the sudden loss of altitude and lift due to downdraft. This loss of altitude without change in power or pitch altitude is consistent with downdraft associated with changing environmental conditions over high terrain. In our findings also, we said there's limited national navigational capacity, a capability, for en route and remote area weather services. We also looked at training and realized that the Air Force doesn't have much simulator training. For flight following and tracking of aircrafts, we realized that it was also not there. There's no secondary surveillance radar, no automatic dependent surveillance broadcasts, or any other real-time tracking of aircraft. our safety, our safety recommendations, there is a definite need to modernize the fleet of the Ghana Air Force. We have recommended that the Air Force acquire modern aircraft with terrain avoidance warning systems and modern navigation systems. That the aircraft should have cockpit voice recorders and flight data recorders, which are the audiovisual capable types. That the Air Force should invest in simulators for recurrent training. That they contract certified aviation weather provider or providers, and that Ghana as a nation should try to have en route navigational aids, especially in remote areas. The Air Force should seriously consider establishing flight data monitoring and en route tracking systems. But finally, we believe that is what they have. In conclusion, the helicopter accident was an unfortunate and sudden weather-related accident. At this time, before I take any questions, I just want to give a few acknowledgements. I'd like to acknowledge the efforts and the support that the team had from the National Security Secretariat, led by the National Security Coordinator. It made what was a really difficult job for us much easier to do, and encouraged us to do and persevere to come up with these results. I'd like to say thank you also to the US team that joined us for a period of the investigation, the Chinese for their warm welcome of us when we went to China for the decoding, and all the assistance that they gave us. They were very professional, and they worked with us and got us everything that we needed to be able to fully understand what happened. I'd also like to acknowledge the lead investigator, who in truth is not here today, Air Commodore Akron. He is on national duty outside, but he was a lead investigator and he worked really hard. I'd also like to acknowledge my mother organization, which is the Aircraft Accident and Incident Investigation Bureau, and its commissioner, Mr. John Wombati, for all the support he gave to us and the full availability of the AIB architecture to help us. And to the team that did this investigation, for their open-mindedness, their objectivity, their logic, their diligence and perseverance, and their dedication and commitment for over 2 months, working close to 7 days every day, sometimes from morning 9 till 9 at night, because we knew the country was hungry to know what had happened. And finally, I'd like to thank God for blessing us and giving us the fortitude, the mindset, and for guiding us to come up with this report, which we hope will bring closure to the families of our departed heroes and to the nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Captain Fujo, for that comprehensive and detailed report. Well, at this stage, I would invite questions from members of the media present, so that any clarifications that are required are made before we leave. If you have a question, please take the microphone, identify yourself, the organization you work for, and ask it so that answers may be provided.
Good afternoon. My name is Maxwell. I work with Joy FM and Enjoy News. I know a lot of Ghanaians will be curious to know if the investigative committee listened to the audio recordings, of the helicopter. And I want to find out if indeed you listened, if it's possible to give us an idea of what happened in that moment. And then the second question, you talked about modernizing the fleet of the Ghana Armed Forces. I know right after the incident, there were calls to modernize the fleet. And this revelation is definitely going to reignite the calls, especially also coming on the back of recent discoveries about the presidential jet. I know there are investments. There are plans to inject $1 billion to retool the security agencies. As an expert, revelation is definitely going to reignite the cause, especially also coming on the back of recent discoveries about the presidential jet. I know there are investments. There are plans to inject $1 billion to retool the security agencies. As an expert, I want to find out how fast should we do this and which areas should we look at. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions, please? Yeah, courage. Yeah.
Komala Kulichi, I work at Media General. What was the sudden cause of the loss of altitude for the aircraft, and also the fact that there was postponement in the airworthiness of the helicopter? One, was there an understanding why the Ghana Air Force postponed the initial maintenance of the Z-9, and what was the reason behind this?
Thank you very much. Any other questions, please? Okay, so Captain Fujo would answer these, after which we'll come back for another round of questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your questions. Yes, we listened to the CVR. We listened to it several times. And it is part of what informed us of what caused the accident. And for modernization of the fleet, we think it should be done immediately. Tomorrow is not fast enough. As soon as the country can afford and do it, we should do it, because it would help the Air Force with this core mandate, part of which is to fly dignitaries all over the country. And I think we owe it to ourselves as a nation to make sure that we have aircrafts fit for purpose, aircrafts that are of the highest technology, to make sure that everything is very, very safe. Yeah. To the sudden loss of altitude, I'm sure it was in one of the slides. When you over rugged territory, that's over terrain, dependent on the steepness and so on and so forth, it's very easy to have turbulence. It's caused by eddies and rotors. It's an aviation phenomena, right? And you have updrafts, you have downdrafts. And even interestingly, even above the ridge, you can still have downdrafts coming. And it's a phenomena, it's an aviation phenomena that unfortunately they fell into. They were very unfortunate, but it's a phenomenon that they fell into. And because there cannot be any other reason for that sudden loss of altitude for a plane climbing with power, with a pitch attitude, right? Because you see, the flight data recorder, to just help you understand the whole thing, the flight data recorder records the last 10 hours of a flight. The cockpit voice recorder records the last 2 hours of a flight. The flight data recorder, this particular one on this helicopter, records 93 parameters every second. The 93 parameters is made up of 48 analog parameters and 45 switch positions. So, looking at the flight data report, you know where all the switch positions are, you know what the height of the plane was, you know the exact position of, you know it time bound. So what we are saying is from informed data. It's not that we've just conjectured something. We have the data, we've looked at it, and that is how come we've come with the conclusions we've come up with. I hope I've answered. Then the last one, the postponement of the maintenance. It's industrial practice, it's operational. In the airlines, it's done. Air Force doing it, there's nothing wrong with it. It's accepted practice. So there's nothing to it. I hope I've answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there are any more questions, I'll take them now. Yeah.